Stephen Wright, I want to be clear, we don't know anything conclusive yet, but some officials suspect the crash could have been caused by a bird strike. Could you explain to our viewers how small birds can bring down big planes?
Good evening. The problem with birds is that they can be ingested. This is a seaside airport, so it stretches out towards the sea, and that means that you have problems with wildlife, with birds and such like. So it's possible the aircraft's coming into land and that it's known that flocks of birds are in the area. Now, this was given as a warning to the flight crew, from what we understand from the transcripts that are recorded from air traffic control on the ground. The birds get ingested, typically just into one engine, and that then causes catastrophic damage on the engine itself. And although you lose the thrust, you also lose other services, namely hydraulics, electrics, pneumatic air. This is a particular problem.
There's so much at stake. I mean, how often do bird strikes happen? And shouldn't there be security measures in place to at least minimize bird flocks at airports?
There is the simple answer. And the problem does occur. I happen to have worked at London Gatwick and seen birds being ingested into a British Airways 757 leaving from England going to America, and it was one of the most surreal things I've ever seen, including seeing bits of birds coming out the back of the engine, fire coming out the engine, exhaust from the fire extinguishers, and then watching all the fire service rush to the runway in preparation for the emergency landing. So I've seen this firsthand. It does happen. The airports do mitigate the problem by they have ground services that scare away the birds. You don't find any trees at airports or near airports because they mitigate that problem by preventing the birds from nesting in trees. They use other countermeasures to scare the birds away. So they do take this into account. It just does happen occasionally.
Tell us why, in your opinion, the airplane did not have its landing gear lowered.
I can't give you a definitive answer in simple terms. As looking at the video, there are some things that don't quite sit very well with me. Namely, it's apparent that the flight controls, the hydraulic systems on the flight controls, they're hydraulically assisted. They weren't extended, so things like the spoilers. But the landing gear, although it's normally extended and retracted using hydraulic services, there's a emergency free fall, so you can pull a handle in the floor on the aircraft. It unlocks all the landing gear up locks. It makes the landing gear naturally open up, and the pilot then performs a couple of maneuvers left and right a few times, and that forces the landing gear down. And that's part of the design of the aircraft, to make sure that the wheels come down before landing. Why the plane came down without its landing gear extended, I can't give you that answer.
Right.
However, they've got the black boxes and they will be interrogated to answer that question.
Again, this is layman stuff, and we're talking largely to an audience of lay people. Why didn't the fire tenders lay a foam carpet on the runway when it was clear the plane was attempting an emergency landing without wheels down?
So the first thing that I would say in response to that is that runways tend to be quite long. It's not like 25 meters of black asphalt and simply, you chuck a few thousand liters of AFFF foam and problem solved. Runways tend to be 2.5, 3 kilometers long. So you can give you an idea how much foam would be required for that purpose.
Right.
The next big problem that you've got is this aircraft was intending to come straight in from the sea, but then changed its mind, turned around, and returned back in the opposite direction.
You mentioned the fact that the runways are long. The video shows the plane coming off the tarmac and hitting a wall. I take it it's standard for airstrips at international airports to be surrounded by brick walls?
Now, Korea is a bit different to other countries. Now, what you probably haven't been explained is that this airport, like so many in Korea, are shared by both the civil business and also the military. So the civil business, the military side of this, effectively it's a protected area. And I've travelled to South Korea many times. I'm married to a Korean, so I've seen many airfields where they've got brick walls with razor wire on the top of the walls to keep unwanted visitors out. They didn't hit, from what I've seen, the brick wall, the perimeter wall around the airfield. What they've done is hit a concrete structure that supports the instrument landing system localizer at the end of the runway, and it's ploughed through that, and at high speed that's then shredded the aircraft.